Hey, hello. Thank you for coming. This is Firefighting on Rails. My name is Ethan Vizitei, and I'm a software developer who here writes code for a living. I hope that before the end of this talk, you're all going to change your mind. This is where I used to work, all these places at one point or another. And I like them well enough. This is where I work now, 12 spokes. And I love it. I love 12 spokes. I can't stress that enough. And there's a lot of reasons why. I could go into it, but it's not really the point of the talk. There's two things that are relevant. One is that I work about 35 hours a week. That's my work week. And that gives me a lot of free time, a lot more than some other people in the industry. The other is that I don't work from the office. This is 12 spokes, and it's a really bad picture. And, and there's a reason. That's because I have a very limited selection. This is the only picture in existence that has everybody in 12 spokes in one room. So it got this spot by default. That's because this is where everybody lives. 12 Spokes is based in Salt Lake City in Utah, and we've got people all over the United States. Totally distributed team, which is great. Keeps our overhead down, lets us live in low cost of living areas near our families. That's where we grew up. It's awesome. And if anyone wants to talk about the merits of having a distributed team or some of the challenges, that is a great talk. I love talking about that. Come see me afterwards. It's worth looking into if you've been thinking about it. But the reason this is relevant for today is this. This is where I work every day, which might not seem particularly out of the ordinary until you realize it's in this building. So for those of you who don't recognize the distinct construction, this is a fire station, my fire station. I am a software developer during the day, and about for half my life. And then the rest of the time, I'm a firefighter. I do both. And if that's not enough cognitive dissonance for you, I did ballet for 8 years. So these are both huge parts of my life. And that means that every day at work, this is what it's like. My worlds are colliding all the time. I have left client calls to go to fires. I have not gone to fire training because it was really important to get a deployment out that night. It's tough. It's not an easy part of my life, but I love both parts of it. And one of the upsides is it landed me in the middle of some really interesting projects, which is kind of the point of why I'm here today. I have a wide set of apps that I've worked on that have helped the fire service in my area in some way. And this was supposed to be kind of a survey where I walked through them and said, here are some of the really cool things with Rails I did for the fire service. But I kept coming back to this one application, the first one I wrote for the fire service, that I couldn't get over because I didn't want to show it to you because it's terrible. But at the same time as being terrible, it's wonderful because of what it does. And I've kind of gone off the rails, but this ended up being the point of the talk. But before I can tell you about that app, you need to have some context, because without understanding the problem, it's going to be difficult to understand what a great solution it was. So bear with me for a minute. We're going to go away from software development and into firefighting. I'm going to try to keep some lingo out of it, but the context is important. This is the American Fire Service. It's basically got two sides, okay? Career, volunteer, paycheck, free time. There's some debate in the industry about, in the fire service industry about, what's with these other guys. The career guys think that the volunteers don't have enough time, don't have enough training, aren't good at what they do. Volunteers think that the career guys don't have the heart, just in it for a paycheck, all that stuff. They're both right for about 2% of the opposite group, and the rest, it just doesn't matter. Because not that much is different. I mean, fires don't burn differently when they're covered by volunteer departments. Cars don't crash differently when they're covered by career departments. It's all the same stuff they're working on. It's a matter of population density. When you have a lot of people living in one area, you have a high tax base and a lot of demand for 911 services. When you don't, those numbers go down, but you still need some. You can't just say because only 5% of Cleveland lives here, we don't need to put fires out. So that's where the volunteer service comes from. And that's what I am. That's what we do. And you might have a picture in your head of what the volunteer fire service looks like. You might see small town, single station, middle of the town, one truck, old, 20 guys, also old. It's not like that. This is the district that I'm from. We have 14 stations. We've got tons of trucks. I listed them all up there. Don't bother figuring it out. They all have different jobs. Okay? 250 people, 492 square miles of coverage. This is real. This is on the order of 50 calls a weekend, 50 911 calls for service in a weekend. And we do it all with volunteers. We're very proud of that. And so there's not that big of a difference between career and volunteer, but there's one. There's one big one. That's this. This is a Minotaur 5-pager made by Motorola. It's a device you don't see a lot of anymore, because if you think about devices you have, there's no touch screen. You can't talk to it. It's just a speaker with an on-off switch, okay? But it's a decent solution to a really hard problem. The problem is that when you're a career fire department, you can take 3 people who you pay, put them in a station, and say, you stay there until something bad happens. And when something bad happens, the alarm in the station goes off, and you get a printout, and you get a map, and it tells you where to go and what's going on and what needs to happen. It's a very efficient system. There's a lot of cool software that goes into making that stuff happen. But for volunteers, when you think about having one station, or 14 stations in our case, who have about 20 people per station, and needing to cover that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because it turns out people don't schedule their emergencies, you can't have 3 people there all the time. You'll burn them out. They won't stick around. So this is one of the solutions. You make sure you have like at least one person at the station who can drive the fire truck to the scene. Everybody else has pagers, and when your pager goes off, you listen, you get in your car, put it on your visor, and you drive your car to the emergency. It's a decent solution to a hard problem. So this is how they work. It's a radio. It listens to a certain radio frequency, okay? It can either be opened or closed. When it's open, you hear everything that goes on the radio frequency, which is cool sometimes if you're interested, and most other people aren't. So if you've got it open all the time, it's not great for your friends, and it's really not great for your family. And I have a wife who's been doing this with me for 4 years, so it's really not great for them to be hearing it all the time. So there's also a closed mode. And what that means is that you don't hear anything until the tone sequence for your station goes off. My station's station 14. I happen to know that the tone sequence for my station is an ascending octave. So when my station needs to, for you non-musicians, it's a certain tone pattern. Don't worry about it. So when a call comes in from my station, those tones go off, the pager hears it and opens up, and then everything that happens after that gets played out over the speaker. So you only need to get alerted to the things that you need to go to. There's a drawback. There are some drawbacks. One, they're extremely loud. Okay, that's what they sound like when they go off. And that can happen anytime, 2 a.m., middle of the night. It can build some friction in spousal relationships. So they're extremely loud. They're audio only, which might not seem like such a big deal until you hear how quickly some people can talk when their adrenaline's really amped up. The only source of information, if you're not at the station, is audio. You hear it once. It's limited bandwidth. You can only one person can talk on the radio at a time. And it's only programmable by technician, which is something I hate about closed systems, right? This is keyed to station 14. If I'm going to spend 2 days over in station 5's box, then I just have to leave it open or not go to stuff. Sucks. Okay? But like I said, decent solution to a hard problem. So this is, just to give you an idea of how hard a problem this is, I'm going to play some real audio from a real dispatch. Okay? This is actually from my area. So listen carefully.
Columbia, engine 501, engine 101, Quint 9, tanker 505, tanker 105, squad 104, medic 111, Delta response residential structure fire, 5800 block, Kent Drive North, Boone Fire jurisdiction. Engine 501, engine 101, Quint 9, tanker 505, tanker 105, squad 104, medic 111, Delta response residential structure fire, 5800 block of Kent Drive North, Boone Fire jurisdiction. Crossers Oakland, Gravel, and Allen Circle, time Allen 1033, K to J45, KLK 57, Drive 20.
Okay. You got all that, right? So, that is not because of bad audio here. It's not. That's what it is. Okay? It goes off, you get a monotone voice speaking very quickly to pack as much information into about 30 seconds as possible. And then you go find it. Okay? Who remembers the address of the fire? Anybody? Okay, good. We got like 10 people. If we dispatch 200 people to a fire and 10 got it, it's not good enough. Okay, so, but pretty good, you guys who got it. Come see me afterwards, move to Columbia. Okay, it's hard. Now, there's some things that make this easier. For instance, when you listen to that over and over again, many times a day, over a long period of time, you start to pick up on things. You start to discard information that's not important to you and key in on that script and what parts are critical. So you start remembering the address, the cross streets, the sort of things that you need to know. But there's, I'm a problem solver. I like making things simpler. You guys are all too. So you've probably already started to see where I'm going. Okay? When you join the fire service as a volunteer, you get a small pocket-sized device that's independently configured to your needs that you carry with you all the time so that people can push important information to you instantly. And every time you try and shove it into your pocket, it runs into another small pocket-sized device you carry with you all the time so that people can push important information to you instantly. Why does this not already exist? Well, it does already exist. Okay? There are many companies who do this kind of thing. The problem is that they have some margins to deal with. So if this is what we want to do, go from a single phone calling 911, going to the computer automated system, and add on to these other two ways that we already distribute information, that phone coming back to the firefighters, that should totally be possible. Called our vendor, said, what do you think? Yeah, no problem. Wah, wah. Okay, it's just, they're a big software company. They've got lots of things to do, and it's just not high, it wasn't high on their list, and that's no affront to them. I mean, I've worked for big companies. But this is still a problem for me. I wasn't happy with it. And the great thing about being a software developer who's not happy with some sort of information delivery is that you typically have the power to do something about it. That's a big power. You should take that seriously. Okay, so this is what the web status board looks for. This is not designed for the average volunteer to look at and deal with. This is the information overload. It's what chief officers look at before they go in their buggy to go manage a scene. It's what's available in the MDTs, the data terminals that are available inside fire trucks sometimes. Okay, a lot of information here. All the stuff that came from the caller to the 911 call taker, address, what trucks are going to go, what the caution notes are for that address. Very densely packed information, but it's all in tables, right? How hard could this be to extract? It's just HTML. We can deal with HTML. So this is what came into my head. We got the web status board. Instead of waiting for them to sort something out to send us text messages, I'm just going to read it. I'm going to parse it, and whenever anything new pops up, I'll see who is interested in those trucks and send them stuff. But there are some limitations. The first one is this, that I basically gave myself one weekend. Okay, here's the deal. I do software, and I do firefighting, and I also have a family, one kid, one on the way, and that's what I do with my free time. You guys who do open source, thank you. I love you. You make my life easier. You make everybody's lives easier in here. But when you go to my GitHub page, it's embarrassing. I only have a few little contributions here and there. I'm sorry. I am doing useful things with my free time, though. So that was my limitation. Okay? I said I'm going to do it one weekend. Wife's out of town. Not committed to anything else. If I can do it in that time, I'll use it. There's a lot of data in there that can't go out, so just had to keep some things in my head about not dealing with information that can't be public. Needs to be quick, because if I don't have the information by the time the page is going out on my pager, I'm not really saving anything. I'm trying to solve that part of the problem. And there is some interesting, and I want it to be good for more than just me, because 250 people, if it's just me benefiting from it, it might not be worth my time, but there's a lot of other firefighters out there who could use that. And so the problem with the volunteer fire service is that you've got an odd mix of the people who make decisions and what leverage they have over the people who take actions. You all work on some software product somewhere. And for some of you, it's something that's consumer-based, where you build something and you try and entice people to come in and say that they want to use it, Flickr or Facebook or those sorts of things. When you're the person who's making the decision that this is what you want to use, you've got some incentive to learn how it works. Maybe not a lot. You'll still be scared off if it looks crazy, right? But you're willing to put a little bit of time into that to figure out how it works. If you work at a big company and you're a line accountant, you don't pick the accounting software. Someone up at the top level picks the accounting software, and they say you're going to use it. The decision maker is separate from the person who has to figure this stuff out. But they also control your paycheck. So there's some reason why you have to figure this stuff out. When it comes to a volunteer fire organization, we have big problems with compliance. The people at the top are making the decision, and the people at the bottom who have to do stuff, if they don't like it, they walk. You don't have anything on them, right? So it's got to just work. Additionally, I included here at the bottom, it's not that big of a deal, but if you don't know the sort of demographics that make up small fire departments, computer literacy is not exactly a prerequisite. Wide variety, but this is not something people are going to put a lot of time in to figure out. So it's got to be simple, smooth, almost invisible. So this is what I knew. I knew that I could not have done this 10 years ago, because all this stuff is pre-built. Rails, well, obviously I'm here, right? Like, this is Rails Conf. So that's why, that and the fact that I love the framework is why it's in there. And there are services that send text messages when you send posts, Twilio. There are services that send emails when you send posts, SendGrid. There's great infrastructure that's pre-built that you can just send stuff to play with, Heroku, and you don't have to pay for it if it's just a small server. Okay, great to try stuff out on. And I also was interested in MongoDB at the time, and that data about an incident is just a document, so it's a great place to throw that stuff. And I said, this is what I'm going to build. I'm going to have Mechanize, and it's just going to keep looking at that board over and over again. All the information on what calls are active right now, every 30 seconds or so. And every time something new comes up, it takes all the data, throws it in Mongo, and starts looking at the subscriptions. People come in and say, these are the trucks I care about. I want to know when 1401 is going somewhere. I want to know when Squad 104 is going somewhere. When a call comes in for that truck, I want to know about it. And then when that happens, notifications go out. It's a fairly simple system. So this, like I said, first thing I ever wrote for the fire service. And this is what the majority of it ended up looking like. Sorry. Now, it's Ruby, so it's, it's not that bad to read, but it's not great. Like, this was totally built on write one line, see if that worked, write the next line, see if that worked. I've got XPaths in there because there's no CSS selectors, no IDs or classes in that HTML, just raw XPaths that when that HTML changes, my app's going to break. I mean, you know, this is what most of the application is like. That's the segment that actually sends a text message out that says this is where you're going, this is it, okay? I take a bunch of stuff, shove it into a string, substring out parts of it, the ends of it, at random places just so it would fit in a text message. Like 5 minutes throwing this junk together. This is what comes out the other end on my phone. Okay, that's a real structure fire that happened on the 23rd. So I have an address. I've got some information about the trucks, engine 501, engine 1301, engine something else, so it would all fit in a text message. Cross streets, the places where the intersections are before and after the address that's involved. And then, down there at the bottom, because the address is already there, link to a map. Why not? Here's where it is on your phone. Link to the notes. All the details that the 911 call taker got. And you might think maybe that's not such a big deal. It's a big deal. We don't just go to fires. We also go to maybe somebody who picked up the phone and said, help, help, they're bleeding, they're bleeding. Okay? And if you hear that in the dispatch, why are they bleeding? Did they fall over and hurt themselves? Were they stabbed or shot? Is that person still there? I mean, there's important information that could be in the notes that might not be able to be transmitted over the radio in a very brief amount of time. So this is critical stuff. This is what the UI looks like. I hope you're all impressed. Now, in my defense, Twitter Bootstrap wasn't around at the time, but in my not defense, I also didn't try very hard. This is a div with a 1 pixel black border, and in fact, I didn't even put that in a style sheet. Okay? This is how you control your account. This is where I put in my phone number. This is where I put in my email address, and that's it. That's the application. You want to see the email template? It's pretty impressive. I can't believe I wrote a template for this. Okay, so what's the point? Why did I bring you all to RailsConf so that you could see the worst application I've ever written? I mean, you guys came here to learn important stuff about how to make your code better and how to scale your apps and how to do amazing things that I'm not even that good at yet. Why is this important? Well, let's look at the results. Firefighters in my area now get notifications in quiet spaces where they might not want to have their pager on before. If you're a spouse of a firefighter, you would appreciate that. People have personally configurable notifications that they can change. If I am going to go be in Station 6's area for a week, I change my subscriptions. I get those notifications. I don't have to do anything or talk to anybody else about it. It's mine. I have mapping data. Okay? I click that link and it just drops it on Google Maps. It's not a big deal. But you know what the previous version is? Okay, first, when you hear the dispatch, you remember what the address is. And then you take the address and you go to this book, a binder that you keep in your car. And you open it and you go through the alphabetic index. Kent Lane, it's on page 1921. And you turn to that page and then you have a zoomed in map and you look for where that is. There's the address is. You go to the zoomed out map and you find out how you're supposed to get there. Okay? People get very good at that. When you've done it for a while, you can do it in about 20 seconds. But now we have a link. I click the link. I know where to go. Textual data, if you can't remember what the address is, you don't have to, some pages have repeaters. Mine has one, so after it goes off, I can press the repeater and listen to the dispatch again. That's handy, but you still got to listen through the whole thing if you want to get some piece of information out of it. Now I just visually scan my text. What was the first cross street? I can just look at it, not while you're driving. It's worked so well that when we came in for gear checks annually this year, people had lost their pagers and forgotten how to use map books. Like, we were losing skills. We had training since then, figuring out how to use maps again, because people forgot how to do it, because they started making use of this so much. Okay? So, what do you draw out of that? Probably the worst code I ever wrote, definitely the least effort into an aesthetic, and perhaps my most significant impact that I've ever done through software. I'm not sure I know what to take out of that. And by the way, for those of you who might ever think about working with 12 spokes, this is not the kind of code I write at 12 spokes. So I don't know, but I can give you an analogy. Some people think this is what firefighting is about. Busting in doors, tearing up cars, putting out huge fires. That stuff's in there. But this is the essence. You ever wonder why that's so iconic? Why do firefighters take cats out of trees? Why is that a big deal? Well, I'll tell you why. It's a problem that somebody else didn't have the skills or knowledge to solve. And this guy knows how to solve it. So he did it. Just did it. When I first became a firefighter at my recruit academy, the chief of the department, CEO, comes into the very first class and says, I'm going to tell you all tonight how to be a firefighter. And this is what he told us. Respond quickly, solve the problem, be nice. There are a lot of different problems out there, some of which you might not have the skills to solve yet. And we will teach you those. We will teach you how to solve big, crazy problems with aggressive tactics. But this is the essence. This is the point. It's not about all that stuff. Okay? It's not about your gear or your skills. It's about solving problems. So what do we take from that? It's not about the code. I hope you don't write code for a living. I hope you solve problems. I hope that instead of being so focused on the tools, the design features, the patterns, all the scaling tricks, all the different databases, that instead of being focused on that stuff as the be-all, end-all, the stuff that you can talk with your buddies about and say, hey, my tests are running in under 10 seconds, what about you? Okay? That's not the point. Those are the tools. That's how you get there. This is the point. We're here to solve problems. So, what should you take away from that? Well, here's my advice. Find a cool problem, write bad code, profit. Okay, no, that's dumb. Okay, write that off. The point is this, okay? Even though this is the point, this is what we should remember, this stuff's critical, okay? As a firefighter, just because the point is helping people doesn't mean that you don't learn all your crap and that you don't hone it and that you don't make that so much a second nature part of your being that you're so good at it. I mean, that's critical stuff. It's just you got to remember it's not the point. There's some separation there, okay? If your house is on fire and somebody's coming to help, do you care at all that they pulled an 1 3/4 attack line, went in through side one, made a very aggressive sweep of the interior, used a thermal imaging camera and a pike pole to check the attic for extension? You care about any of that? No. Did my kid get out? Can I still use my house? You don't care. Any more than a client cares when you tell them your tests run in under 10 seconds. What? It doesn't mean that stuff's not important. That you just have to see that it's not the same thing. That the goal is bigger than the tools you use to get there. So what does that look like? Well, I can tell you from a fire perspective first, that a firefighter who goes to somebody who's had their kitchen light up on Thanksgiving, puts the fire out, high fives with his buddies in the front yard, says, be more careful next time, and leaves, doesn't get it. Okay? The guy who stays and says, look, man, I'm sorry. We put the fire out, your house is okay, your kitchen's kind of a mess right now, I don't think it's going to work for tonight. Why don't you come back to the station with us and we'll have Thanksgiving dinner together? He gets it. He solved the problem. Okay? I'm not sure what that looks like for you, but I know what it looks like for me because I ran into this a few months ago. Working for a big client, 412 spokes. They had a huge segment of data that was running too slow, couldn't generate their page fast enough, and I fixed it. I went in and I, did a lot of caching and took care of some really crazy database queries, and I made that thing fast. And I threw it over to them and said, how about that? How do you like your app now? You know what they said? This isn't the data we were looking for. I got so caught up in making the page fast, I didn't bother to care what the client thought about it. I didn't see it from their perspective. I saw it from mine. I'm awesome. I make shit fast. Not the point, right? I got one last thing to say on the subject. Okay, as long as we are looking at this and learning how to be better software developers from this idea, it wouldn't hurt to remember point 3 from time to time, too. Be nice. You can go a long way just by being nice. A lot of you may not know it, but you are probably covered by volunteer fire departments. Okay? Wherever you live, 75% of the firefighters in America are volunteers. It could be your house. And if it is, software developers are so very valuable to volunteer fire departments. Okay? They are intelligent people who solve problems for a living. That's the kind of skills that you need to be a firefighter. We want people in dangerous spots to have intelligence and to be people who can take care of problems. Okay? And frankly, if you're a telecommuter, you can work from the station. You might not understand how big a deal it is to have somebody who can be at a volunteer fire station during the day. It is huge. You could, beyond what you do for your job, make a huge impact in your community. If you haven't thought about it before, please go home and think about it. You could do a really good thing. Okay? 12 Spokes is awesome. If you ever care about software and you want to see good code, come see us. This is me. Thank you for coming.